Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the Big Bang. Some of you looked into this a little bit whenever you were doing your informational story. Many of you did not, so we're going to make sure that everybody is kind of on the same page with this. So we want to start off with a definition. So you're going to write this at the top of your paper. So the Big Bang Theory, what is that? Well, essentially, the Big Bang Theory is the idea that the universe started off as a single point and then expanded and stretched to grow as large as it is now. And in fact, it is still expanding. So make sure that you do write this down into your notebook right at the top of this page so that you have it for reference. Now, underneath that definition, we are going to be drawing a picture to kind of represent how this worked. So what I draw, I want you to draw as well. If you have different colors, please use different colors. So whenever we start off, the universe essentially starting off is this tiny, tiny point. And right here, it looks rather big, but imagine, right, we make it as small as possible. But essentially, it's starting off as this tiny point, and this point is called the singularity, okay? Which is essentially just like a fancy word for like how the universe is starting. So in the beginning, there's a teeny tiny point that is super, super, super hot, and that is why I made it red. Now, from that, the universe is going to expand, all right? And it starts off by expanding and making these little guys here. These are just little particles, okay? And this first expansion is going to take 1 second. So to get from this teeny, teeny, tiny point to having some particles is gonna take 1 second. Now, what I would recommend is somewhere on your page, giving yourself a little key. So I'm gonna put up here this little circle. This means equals particles. Okay, now whenever we say particles, we're talking about things like quarks and electrons. Okay, but essentially these are super, super, super small things. These are smaller than anything you ever see on a day-to-day basis. You can't see quarks, you can't see electrons. They're the teeniest tiny things. They are smaller than a cell. That's how small we're talking. Now, from that time, right, so basically in the span of 1 second, you form these particles. Then from that, those particles are going to start to clump together. So we're going to do another little circle like this. Okay, now this part here takes about 3 seconds. And what's essentially going to be happening is that these particles are going to start to look like this. And essentially what we have here is we have nuclei, all right? Nuclei are still smaller than a cell. If you know some stuff about atoms, you may be familiar with nuclei. Nuclei are things like neutrons and protons. You're gonna learn more about that next year in 8th grade. But again, we wanna add this to our key over here. So we have here equals nuclei. The universe here is still super, 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 super crazy hot. Oh, and I made a little mistake. This isn't 3 seconds. This is 3 minutes, so it takes a little bit longer. 3 minutes. So this universe is still super, 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 super hot. Now, how long do you think it takes for our next step to happen, right? We had 1 second for the first step. We have 3 minutes more to get to the second step. Our next step is going to be that around these things, so around our nuclei, other particles are going to start to go around. And so that essentially is going to look like this, where on the little orbits that are going around, we're going to put some little particles. So on those little orbits, you want to have particles. These here are atoms, and atoms are still smaller than cells are. So we're still dealing with something that is very, very, very small. And the universe is, again, still very, very, very hot. So again, how long, if you were to just take a guess, how long do you think it would take to get atoms? Maybe a year, maybe 2 years? Well, remember, to get to our first part, that took 1 second. To get to our second part, that's taking 3 minutes. To get to this third part, it's going to take 370,000 years from the Big Bang in order to form these atoms. Now, we're not going to stop there, right? We know we have other stuff that's in the universe. We don't just have atoms. What do you think is going to form next? I want you to think about it a little bit. So as we are expanding here, okay, the next thing to form is going to be stars. And I'm going to do them like suns because remember the sun is a star. Stars are going to form next. And in the beginning with the Big Bang, stars are actually what's called like supermassive and hypermassive. They're really, really, really big, way bigger than our sun is. Even though our sun is 1,000 Jupiters big. These massive stars are even larger than that. This is also going to be when you start to form, these aren't very good drawings, but you get the idea. This is our galaxies. So these are going to be some cool spiral galaxies. Okay, we definitely want a key for this. So we can show, okay, this equals stars. And this equals galaxies. Now, we said that the first thing, right, took 1 second, then 3 minutes, 370,000 years. How long do you think it takes us in order to get stars? Well, it takes about 180 million years from the Big Bang's formation in order for us to get stars. All right, now stars are not the only thing in the universe, so again, we need to keep going. Now notice that the part where I have stars and galaxies, I did in blue. That's because it has started to cool down. Okay, so remember, the universe is starting off as super, super, super hot and super, super, super dense. But over time, it's cooling down. If you were to go into space right now, you wouldn't burn up and burn alive. That's not going to happen because the universe has been cooling more and more and more. So after 180 million years, stars start to form, galaxies start to form. Well, after stars and galaxies start to form, we finally are going to get our last thing. And of course, at this point, this is when you start to finally get planetary systems. So I'm just going to draw a couple of those. So planetary systems actually can't form until you have stars. And you're going to learn more about why that is in the next activity for this lesson. But essentially, your planetary systems are going to form largely from exploded stars. So when a star is born, it's fabulous. Oh, it's so adorable, it's so cute, that's wonderful. And then that star eventually dies, just like humans die, just like animals die, just like anything dies. And when a star dies, it ejects a bunch of material, a bunch of dust and gas. It's like this super violent, amazing, beautiful thing. And all that material is going to be what ultimately is able to form these planetary systems. And again, I do want to make sure that I add in my key this here equals planetary system. Okay, so my planetary system. Now again, we want to think about How long does this take? Remember, we had 1 second, 3 minutes, 370,000 years, 180 million years in order to start forming stars and galaxies. Now, how long for us to get these planetary systems? Well, it takes about 1 billion years. So 1 billion years after the Big Bang is when planetary systems finally start to form. Now, this isn't all planetary systems. Not all planetary systems are forming at the same time. I do want to make a note that our solar system formed about 4.56, formed about 4.56 billion years ago. This is not billion years after the Big Bang. The Big Bang is happening about 13.8 billion years ago. But our solar system forms about 4.56 billion years ago. So that means that the universe had been around for about 9 billion years before, maybe 8 billion years before our solar system formed. Our solar system is actually a pretty new system. It's pretty young. All right, so we have looked at the formation of a Big Bang. You should have drawn this into your notebook. The last thing that you're going to do is at the bottom of your page, you are going to write a summary. So we've drawn lots of pictures. You've heard how this Big Bang has happened. What I want you to do is just in your own words, don't look it up, in your own words, and you can rewatch some of the video if you need to, describe in, let's say, at least 3 to 5 sentences. Describe what happens with the Big Bang, okay? Alrighty, my dears, that is all. I will see you later.